Before the cross there was the dragon, before guilt there was the womb, and before the Father God there was the Mother, who created and destroyed with the same sacred breath. Her name was Tiamat, a primal force seen as chaos by patriarchy, but revered as divine by those who still listen to the earth speak. In the ancient tablets of Babylon, Tiamat wasn't just a myth. She was the primordial ocean, the matrix of the cosmos. But when power shifted and new gods rose, she was demonized, torn apart and replaced by Marduk, the masculine hero who slayed her and built the world from her body. Look at the inversion. What once was origin became a threat. What once gave life was labeled monstrous. That story echoed across ages, dressed in myths, religions, and doctrine. Tiamat became Lucifer, became Eve, became the witch burned at the stake. The feminine was erased through sacred violence, and not only in the East. Neolithic matriarchal cultures, who honored the earth's cycles and the sacred wisdom of blood, were wiped from maps and memory. The cross replaced the womb, the father replaced the mother, and silence fell like a veil over the daughters of Tiamat. But silence is not emptiness. It pulses, it aches, it longs to return, because within every woman and within every man, there's a fragment of that forgotten goddess. And it won't fade just because the world said to forget. It awakens, hungry for truth. What would happen if we looked back without fear? If we dared to remember what was buried beneath temples and creeds? And what if the dragon was never the enemy, but the mother we were taught to fear? There is so much more beneath the dust of history, and it's about to rise. It didn't start in your lifetime. This fear of the feminine was planted generations ago, layered into scriptures, rituals, and bedtime stories. Tiamat became a cautionary tale. Lilith, the first woman who dared to say no, was cast out as a demon. Women weren't just human. They became metaphors for danger. Across centuries, the church and patriarchal systems worked like sculptors of belief, not with hammers, but with repetition. Eve sinned, Mary submitted, witches burned. The message was clear. A woman who owns her power must be corrected, controlled, or erased. The wound was made sacred, and this programming runs deeper than we think. It's not just in sermons, it's in fairy tales, fashion, and even self-help books. Think about how often feminine qualities like emotion, intuition, and sensuality are painted as weaknesses. Even modern spirituality often echoes these old codes. The damage isn't just cultural, it's energetic. When a woman holds back her voice in a meeting, or when a man hides his tears, they're reenacting a script older than memory. They've been trained to split the divine, logic from feeling, light from dark, God from goddess, and in doing so they've lost parts of themselves. But the body remembers. It knows when it's been caged. It flinches at the touch of shame, recoils at its own longing. And many walk the earth not knowing that what they call self-doubt or insecurity is often inherited programming, an ancient fear of their own sacred fire. What if this programming wasn't truth but a spell? A system of belief designed not to free us, but to keep us small. And if it's a spell, then perhaps it can be broken. But to do that, we must find the courage to face the hidden wound. There's a silent grief carried in the bodies of many, especially women, and most don't even know it has a name. It's the spiritual guilt that whispers, "You're too much," or "not enough." A residue from centuries of being told that desire is dangerous, that intuition leads to ruin, and that their bodies are shameful temples. For men, the wound shows up differently, but it cuts just as deep. Disconnected from their inner feminine, their intuition, empathy, and sensuality, many have learned to armor themselves. They were taught to conquer, not to feel, to dominate, not to dance with the unknown, and they too are starving for something they can't name. The repression of the feminine has made us all afraid of our own inner serpent, that symbol of sacred wisdom, of cyclical death and rebirth. In ancient cultures, the serpent was revered. In the biblical narrative, it became the deceiver, a brilliant metaphor for how wisdom was recast as sin and pleasure as a threat. And so we numb. Through overworking, endless scrolling, perfectionism, emotional detachment, we've become experts at dissociation. But underneath it all, the soul still aches to feel, to reconnect, to remember, to rise. And this ache often surfaces as anxiety, burnout, chronic fatigue, even physical pain in the womb or throat. What if the pain isn't the problem, but the messenger? What if your anxiety is actually a signal, a flare from your forgotten self saying, "Come home to me"? The wound is not a curse, it's an invitation. But to accept it, we must be willing to feel again. And in that feeling, a question arises. What if pleasure isn't sinful but sacred? What if the very things we were taught to fear were the doorway to our wholeness all along? Somewhere deep within there's a whisper, soft but steady, calling you back to something ancient, something real. It's not coming from a book or a guru. It rises from your bones, your belly, your breath. It's the mother speaking, not in words, but in sensations, nudges, and dreams. And she wants you to come home. To return doesn't mean going backward. It means dropping beneath the noise, the trauma, the dogma, into your own sacred rhythm. This is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. It's peeling back layers until your truth breathes again. One of the most direct paths back to her is the body. Not as an object to fix, but as a temple to feel. Try this. Place your hands on your womb or your heart and simply breathe. Ask, what truth lives here? Don't rush the answer. Let your body speak in its own language. Minor sensation, emotion, silence. Reconnection also happens through reclaiming what was once demonized. Your pleasure, your tears, your wildness. Dancing barefoot under moonlight isn't cliché, it's rebellion. Making love with presence, crying without shame, laughing without permission. These are rituals of return. They're acts of spiritual resistance. And as you reconnect, you begin to hear her voice in places you'd forgotten to look, in the way the wind moves through trees, in the warmth of your skin after a long bath, in the way your body says yes or no long before your mind does. The soul doesn't scream, it hums. And now you're listening, because once you remember how to hear her, the whole world begins to shift. Old stories crack, new desires rise, and what once felt like chaos now feels like guidance. But there's still something deeper, something older, waiting to be re-seen. What if what we've been calling chaos was actually the original order? Tiamat, the vast, swirling ocean of potential, wasn't disorganized. She was undomesticated. She didn't follow the rules of linear time. She moved in spirals like the galaxies, like the womb. Her language wasn't logic, it was life. The feminine, when unfiltered, speaks in symbols, emotions, and rhythms, not in bullet points or doctrines. It speaks through art, dreams, tears, laughter, cycles, and for those raised in systems that value control and clarity, this can feel uncomfortable. But maybe that discomfort isn't danger, maybe it's initiation. We've been taught to fear what we don't understand. So we labeled the dark womb void, the bleeding body impure, the unknown evil. But the void isn't absence, it's the cradle of creation. And impurity. That was just life unfiltered by shame. The feminine isn't messy, it's mystical. Consider this. The moon doesn't ask for permission to wax or wane. The ocean doesn't apologize for her tides. They just are, aligned with a wisdom beyond human logic. That's the feminine in her natural state. Unapologetic, whole, cyclical, and maybe that's the language of the divine we've forgotten how to speak. When we reclaim this lens, even our struggles start to look different. A breakdown isn't failure, it's gestation. Confusion isn't weakness, it's a sign that something deeper is moving. Life doesn't always make sense in the moment, but the feminine teaches us to trust what can't be rushed. And as we begin to speak this language again, something awakens. A memory older than books, a rhythm older than clocks. The feminine isn't here to be explained, she's here to be experienced. But to experience her fully, we must first remember how to feel. Long before the temples of stone, there were circles of women under the stars. They weren't followers, they were keepers. Keepers of lunar rhythms, of sacred blood, of energy that flowed not from books, but from Earth herself. They listened not just with ears, but with skin, womb, breath. They knew what we've forgotten. These women, priestesses, midwives, dreamers, didn't separate spirit from flesh. The body was the altar, pleasure was a prayer, birth was ceremony and death, just another passage through the sacred spiral. Their knowledge wasn't linear. It was embodied, intuitive, sensual, and it didn't need to be proven to be true. Many of these traditions were rooted in simple yet powerful acts. Ritual baths under the full moon, herbal tonics whispered with intention, movement guided by sensation, not choreography. You don't need to join an ancient cult to remember this. You can start by taking a walk barefoot, or cooking with presence, or simply placing your hand on your belly and listening. Intuition was once the most trusted compass, especially in women. Today, we often override it with logic, fearing it's just emotion. But emotion is information. It's the soul's language, and the more we honor it, the more it reveals. That gut feeling, the goosebumps, the dream that won't leave you, these are messages from the forgotten temple within. Energy, not just physical but subtle, was part of daily life. Sensations were read like scriptures. People didn't ask, "What's wrong with me?" but "What is my body trying to say?" Pain was seen as a shift in flow, desire as a sacred nudge, exhaustion as a message, not a flaw, and all of it was honored with deep reverence. So what would it mean to live like that again? Not to copy the past, but to awaken the part of you that still remembers, because the wisdom wasn't lost, only buried. And it lives in your senses, your silence, your softness, waiting to be heard. The body doesn't lie, even when the mind does. It holds truths we've forgotten, truths we've ignored. That lump in the throat when you're silenced, the tightness in your chest when you betray your boundaries. These aren't flaws, they're signals. Messages from the soul sent through flesh and bone. Anxiety, often a scream from intuition that's been ignored for too long. PMS, womb pain, chronic fatigue, sometimes they're not just biological. Sometimes they're spiritual smoke signals, warnings that we've strayed too far from our own center, from the sacred rhythm that once guided every step. In patriarchal culture, we're taught to conquer the body, to silence it with pills, to push it harder, to make it behave. But ancient wisdom taught the opposite, to listen to the body like a sacred text. Every ache, every sensation is a line in a forgotten scripture, one that begins and ends with presence. Let's get practical. Next time you feel a symptom arise, ask it what it wants you to know. Place your hand on the spot. Breathe. Name the emotion. Don't try to fix, just witness. That act alone can shift everything. Healing doesn't always mean doing more. Sometimes it means finally listening. Many feminine-coded illnesses, thyroid imbalances, fibroids, endometriosis, are rising rapidly in our time. Could it be that the repression of feminine energy has consequences not just emotionally, but biologically? The body remembers what the mind tries to forget, and it will speak louder and louder until we listen. Because the body isn't against you, it is you. It's not separate from your spirit, and it's the sacred mirror. And if you dare to look into it, you'll see not just symptoms, but sacred instructions. They told us the serpent was evil, but what if it was sacred? In nearly every ancient tradition before monotheistic conquest, the serpent symbolized wisdom, rebirth, and divine feminine power. It moved close to the earth, shedding its skin in cycles, just like us, just like the soul. Menstrual blood, demonized as dirty, hidden, or shameful, was once revered as sacred life force. It was offered to the earth, used in ritual, honored in community. Now we flush it away in silence. But the blood still knows, it still sings, and for those who listen it becomes a path of remembrance. Desire is another portal we were taught to fear, branded as temptation, sin, lust. But in its purest form, desire is a compass, a sacred impulse toward wholeness. To want deeply, whether it's intimacy, purpose, or joy, is not weakness. It's life calling you closer, and ignoring that call breeds more harm than answering it. What if the taboos were never dangerous but powerful? What if the things we were told to hide were actually tools of awakening? Your pleasure, your wildness, your rage. They're not enemies. They're invitations, rites of passage. They crack the false shell and reveal the soul beneath. There's a reason these things were banned, controlled, and silenced for centuries, because when we reclaim them, we become impossible to manipulate. A woman who honors her blood, her serpent, her desire, she doesn't kneel, she doesn't beg. She remembers, and in remembering she becomes sovereign. So next time you feel shame creeping in, pause. Ask, whose voice is this? Is this my truth or someone else's fear? Because buried in every taboo is a doorway, and some doors were meant to be opened. Healing isn't about fixing what's broken, it's about feeling what's been forgotten. In a world obsessed with speed and solutions, the feminine invites us to slow down and feel, not to analyze or control, but to be with what is. Pain, pleasure, numbness, desire, all of it sacred, all of it a doorway. Most people try to transcend their bodies to find spirit, but the truth, spirit lives inside your skin. The divine is not up in the clouds, it's in your breath, your heartbeat, the goosebumps when something resonates. Your body is not an obstacle to enlightenment, it's the path. To walk this path, begin with the senses. Feel the texture of your food. Listen to the way wind moves through trees. Touch your own skin with reverence, not judgment. These small acts, done with full presence, become sacred rituals. They return you to yourself, to the now, to the mother within. When we allow ourselves to feel without shame, something extraordinary happens. Emotions move, energy flows, stagnation transforms into clarity. And you begin to realize that your sensitivity isn't a flaw. It's your compass. It's how the feminine guides you when logic fails. This kind of presence can be uncomfortable at first, especially if you've lived dissociated for years. But discomfort is not a sign to retreat. It's a sign you're touching something real, something buried, and often something holy. The feminine doesn't demand perfection, only honesty, because to feel is to remember, and to remember is to awaken. So the next time the world tells you to numb out or move on, ask yourself, what might happen if I simply stayed present, just for one more breath? There comes a moment on the spiritual path when you stop looking for permission and start living from your own power. This is sovereignty, not rebellion for the sake of rebellion, but the sacred knowing, I am mine. No church, no tradition, no system defines your worth. That authority was always yours. Energetic sovereignty means you no longer betray your body to be polite. You stop saying yes when your soul screams no. You set boundaries not as walls, but as sacred containers, and your choices begin to align with your truth, not with guilt, not with shame, but with deep embodied clarity. This doesn't mean isolation, it means integration. You can still love, connect, serve, but from fullness, not depletion. You're not waiting to be chosen, validated, or saved. You're already whole, and that wholeness becomes magnetic. It changes how you relate to others. It even changes the kind of love you allow. The church feared this kind of feminine power, because a woman who knows herself cannot be controlled. She doesn't need confession to find peace. She doesn't need permission to feel divine. And when this energy awakens in a man, he stops conquering and starts co-creating. That's how systems begin to shift. To cultivate this sovereignty, try this. Spend a week listening to your yes and no, not just what you think, but what your body says. Keep a journal. Track the moments when you honored your truth and when you didn't. Watch how your energy changes. This is sacred data, your soul's voice in motion. Because once you taste this level of inner freedom, you don't go back, not to people-pleasing, not to pretending, not to silence. You rise, not in anger, but in remembrance. And in your rising, something ancient begins to stir. The greatest illusion we've inherited is that spirit and body are separate, that heaven is above and the flesh below. But the mystical truth, they were never divided. The sacred lives in your breath, your blood, your bones. Spirit is the body awakened, and the body is the altar of the divine. Tiamat was never just a myth, she was the map. Her so-called chaos was the womb of everything. Her story was split, scattered, buried, yet still she pulses in your cells. When you honor your body as holy, you are restoring her. You are remembering what the old world tried to erase. This union isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's not about transcending your pain, but allowing it to become the fire that transforms you. The body holds trauma, yes, but it also holds the key to ecstasy, to peace, to awakening. Not in spite of your flesh, but through it. Masculine and feminine, logic and feeling, sky and soil, they were never enemies. They are lovers who were torn apart by doctrine. But inside you, they long to reunite, to dance, to create, to birth a new way of being. And when they do, the divine becomes not an idea, but an experience. So when you dance wildly, moan in pleasure, weep in the moonlight, you are not losing control. You are embodying spirit. You are becoming the union that every ancient ritual pointed to. You are no longer split. You are whole. And the goddess smiles through your skin, and once you've felt this, truly felt it, there's no need to argue dogma or prove your worth. Your very presence becomes proof, because you now carry the temple within. Within you, the ancient pulse still beats. Beneath the layers of shame, fear, and forgetting, there is blood that remembers. It remembers Tiamat. It remembers the songs of the priestesses, the fires of the sacred circles, the wisdom whispered between mothers and daughters before history was rewritten. You don't need a temple to be holy. Your breath is a hymn. Your cycles are scripture. Your body is the altar. The sacred was never lost, only hidden, waiting for your gaze to return inward. The church walls may have tried to contain divinity, but your skin is far too wild to hold. This isn't about going back in time. It's about reactivating the knowing that never left. Every time you listen to your intuition, choose rest over hustle, speak your truth, honor your body, you are remembering. You are resisting the erasure. You are resurrecting what was never truly gone. And you are not alone. There are others waking up, others hearing the call, daughters of Tiamat, sons of the forgotten womb. We are scattered across the world, but bound by a deeper thread, one that no dogma can cut, one that hums with the rhythm of the Great Mother's breath. So let these words not just be information, but invocation. Let them stir something ancient within you, because the world doesn't need more obedience. It needs remembrance. It needs women and men who walk with the sacred flame alive in their eyes, because inside you, the blood of the first mother still runs, and no church can silence what was born eternal. Look at your life. Where are you still silencing your truth? Where are you still betraying your body? What taboos still carry your power? This is your invitation to act, not with rage, but with reverence. Begin with one sacred choice today. And if this journey moved you, pass it on. Share it with your sisters, with your brothers, with the ones who forgot they were divine. Subscribe to this channel for more awakenings like this. Leave a comment to tell us what memory came alive in you. Like this video if it lit something inside, and activate the notifications, because this is not just a video, it's a return, and the return is just beginning. To understand more about subjects related to cosmic rays, esotericism, theosophy, and advanced spirituality, and access knowledge little known by the general public, access the link in the first pinned comment and discover the ebook, What Are Cosmic Rays, written by Matriarchal.